Imagine you've lived on the East Coast for your whole life. Maybe you're like me. I grew up in northern Toronto. I moved just outside to a suburb of Toronto, and I've lived outside of the city for my whole life. Maybe you're an East Coast type of person, Eastern time zone like me, and all of your work and all of your life and your family and your business has mainly happened on the East Coast. But suddenly you have a new opportunity over on the West Coast. You're able to relocate your business. Maybe you're not going to move, but there's a new business opportunity out on the West Coast. And despite the fact that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, you know how the services work, you know how to prospect, you know exactly who you're looking to target and how you're looking to grow your business on the West Coast, you have no market there. You're not established there. Nobody knows who you are. It's almost as if you're starting again. And so you head out to the West Coast because you want to get a lay of the land. You want to connect with the right people. You want to make some inroads with new networks and new markets. You want to get a sense of what's happening on the West Coast, so you have to go out and meet a bunch of new people. Now, it's not like you're starting with nothing. You have your East Coast experience, your East Coast network, you have your business. I mean, you're not starting with nothing. But nobody on the West Coast knows who you are. You have no connections over there. And so job number one for you is to find out who are the right people, where are they, how can I get in front of them, and how can I start to make connections with them? And once I do make connections with them, what are they going to look to me for? Will my East Coast credibility and experience matter on the West Coast? Will everything that I've done in my past apply to all of these people in the future? You have to ask yourself these types of questions. And while it's very exciting for us to imagine this move, if you've ever done it, if you've moved from market to market or region to region or vertical to vertical or into any kind of selling up channel, whatever that move is, there's a certain amount of uncertainty. There's a certain amount of realization, oh, my past serves me, but not 100% the way that I thought it would. And you find yourself having to be a little bold and go out on an edge and really push into that new market. If you've done it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so let's imagine this move. What are you going to do? You're going to join a bunch of different social groups or networking events to try and meet new people. You're going to make sure that you show up looking the right part. And that might be online. That might be with your business cards. It might be exactly how you tailor your script or your 60-second speech. You're going to make sure that you optimize your profile. But now that you've shown up to these events, are you just going to stand there? You're just going to stand in the corner? Or are you going to work? Are you going to start to go up to people? Are you going to reach out to people? Are you going to try and make new connections? Of course you are. And so if you imagine this move from the East Coast to the West Coast, from one market to another, and you imagine the work that has to go into showing up and pushing into that market and meeting new people, it becomes clear that you need to know who you're targeting. You need to know what they care about most. You need to make sure you show up the right way, and you can't just hope that they hear about you, find you, trip across you, or somehow reach out. It's your job to push into that market. And whether we're talking about relocating from the East Coast to the West, or moving from one market to another, or changing careers, or starting again, that same tactic, that same strategy is happening all day, every day, over on LinkedIn. And that's exactly what we're going to explore with today's guest, Josua B. Lee. He's an entrepreneur, he's a storyteller, he's an author, and he is a super strong advocate for genuine human connections in the digital world to be able to network better and to be able to move from one market to another. A few career highlights: he's built 16 successful businesses. He's the author of the acclaimed book, Balance is Bullshit. He is the founder of an agency called Standout Authority, who, spoiler alert, you will hear at the beginning of the interview, is someone that we've been working with and has really helped us better understand the LinkedIn landscape. And now he's here to share his expertise on creating authentic connections on LinkedIn to be able to grow your network, to be able to generate more leads, and to be able to move into new markets. So welcome to How to Sell More, the sales podcast for non-sales people, where each week we give a masterclass to help ambitious B2B leaders just like you face the number one challenge we all struggle with, we all work on, and we all face, and that is growing revenue. I'm Mark Drager. Let's get into it. So Josua, you and I met a few years ago, actually, on a social platform that we don't talk about, but at least I don't. I've scrubbed it from my memory. Hopefully everyone scrubbed it from their collective consciousness, but I will just fill in our audience. We're talking, of course, about Clubhouse. Now, that was the thing that blew up and disappeared kind of because it caught the zeitgeist of the time of being in lockdown and wanting to network and wanting to connect with people. And it was the perfect app at the perfect time for us to be able to connect with like-minded people. And when I met you at the time, I knew that you were the LinkedIn king. The what what is it you say in your bio?
I'm the dopamine dealer of LinkedIn.
The dopamine dealer of LinkedIn. That's it. And so I've been watching you and your wife, who's the co-owner of the business Standout Authority. I've been watching you guys for a while. And then my friend Evan Carmichael connected with you and he had you on his podcast.
Yep.
And then I go to the Genius Network event in December and we're sitting side by side. I have the chance to get to know you and get to meet you a little bit better. And I share all this to say that 3 things happened. I met you on a social platform, which was about networking on Clubhouse. I met you through my network watching Evan Carmichael's content because we're friends. And then I went to a networking event and I met you at that event again. And that's what I'm hoping we're going to talk about today, because you are an expert when it comes to all things LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I can't help but notice that every time we've connected, it's been through some kind of social network that's actually not Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any of these other things. We just keep bumping into each other. And I feel like there's got to be something to that. That's got to be an illustration to what LinkedIn actually is these days. Am I stretching or is that true?
You're not, brother. I mean, and I appreciate that because, you're right. Like, man, I was so stoked. I had like 80,000 followers, connections, whatever, on Clubhouse. And guess what? 90% of them were trillionaires. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. I can't believe people are so rich and they're spending 12 hours a day on this platform.
Some people were like sleeping with their heads against their phones. Now, I was only really active for about 4 or 5 months. And I feel that was enough time for me to come in and get really impressed.
Yeah.
Get pretty good at it, and then realize behind the scenes that maybe some of it was BS.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about Evan Carmichael as well, too. He realized really quickly, is like, wow, we all talk about our time, but somehow we all got sucked into it for a little bit. And I remember Evan didn't even show up. Like, he just had past recordings on YouTube.
That was me doing that. I was the one operating it, literally here in my office. I took his recordings. I did the bridges. I scripted it for him. We ran it through ManyChat, and I was actually launching his account. And I was able to get to like 12,000 followers in like 3 weeks.
It was mind blowing to me. And then, that's where we kind of realized too, there were like a lot of people on here. I don't know if they were all business owners, but it was about how do we get free information? And if they're looking for free information, guess what? That's all they're willing to pay for as well at the same time. And we realized really quickly, if you didn't have like what we call back then a coffee offer, right? Like, hey, $7 or less for a cup of coffee, don't be on the platform because it's not really going to be able to convert. But like you said, we got to meet other amazing humans that were actually spending time adding value to the platform. And I met a lot of good friends like yourself. And you talk about networking. It's funny today I didn't do it on LinkedIn, but I did post it on LinkedIn. I did a video and I basically went through and I talked about it. I said, look, if you're on LinkedIn just to get leads, get off my platform, right? Like, because all you're doing is spamming 1,000 people, hoping to get one sale when in essence, all you're doing is pissing off 999 people. There's a better way to be able to do it. It's about relationship building, about networking. And dude, you basically gave me a pitch for a home run because that's exactly what's on my mind these days. This is about how do we actually network. Not about LinkedIn, Facebook, but I mean, that's what we're forgetting. We're forgetting to be able to have conversations that build relationships because relationships create opportunities. Look at you and I, look at Evan, look at all the other aspects, Genius Network that you and I are in as well. That's what it's all about, especially now more than ever as business owners. If you're just going to go through and you're trying to sell more and you're looking at B2B and you think it's just a numbers game, look, Mark, you might think differently. I don't think you do. But it's not a numbers game anymore, right? Like that's just called spamming.
I think it is depending on your approach. So
fair enough.
I think you're a business owner. I'm a business owner. I work with business owners.
Right.
It doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, it can, but it feels a little icky to me to run Facebook campaigns or Instagram campaigns. In a direct response info product like buy my course and I'm going to go ahead and change your world and stuff on a business owner to business owner level. That we've worked with companies where we can set up lead generation funnels through advertising, through lead networks, through things to be able to get it. You can definitely do outbound. Where we run into trouble, I think, is when we try to smash it all together. An outbound campaign with the right tone, with the right message, at the right target, at the right time, with the right offer certainly will lead to lead generation. And networking on the other side and building relationships and being authentic and being real, especially in the day of AI, and being able to do all that stuff will certainly help lead to a stronger network where more opportunities will come to you through know, like, and trust.
Right.
We just can't smash them all together.
And that's the problem. Everyone's trying to be able to do everything all at once. I mean, we just had a movie that came out last year about that, everything everywhere all at once. And I mean, it was very hard to be able to follow the movie at the same time, even though it won a lot of awards. And that's the same situation that we're seeing in online and social and business, right? It's like, what the hell just happened?
What a strange reference. Because just the other day I was looking at it, I was like, oh, we should watch this with my kids. Wow, 11 Oscars. Oh my goodness, this must be a good movie. But now you just warned me that it's confusing as hell.
You got to be able to stay really focused, right? To be able to watch and understand and look at every single detail, to be able, like, I looked at, like, my kids, my wife, they were like, this is confusing. I don't get it. I don't know what's happening. Me, I love the details. So, like, I'm paying attention to what happened 50, minutes earlier, and then it references back. So, like, that's that same situation. The average audience we're talking about, like, average person on all platforms, they function at a 5th grade reading level, right? This is what your audience is. So if you're trying to be able to actually throw everything at them and hope that they're inside your mind enough to be able to pay attention to what's happening, it's not going to work. I mean, we're in our own container, and this is where business owners miss out, especially with sales and marketing, is that one, they think it's the same thing. It's not. There's 2 different aspects of sales, marketing, branding. You and I both know that. They try and combine it all.
So I would even add in branding. Leads to advertising, which leads to marketing, which leads to sales processes, which leads to onboarding, which leads to referrals or winbacks or avoiding churn. That's the way I look at it. So even breaking it down,
that's a natural progression, right? It's not throwing it all at once and seeing where we actually confuse the right audience enough that they go, well, I guess this should work. And I think that's what's happening in today's world, right? Like, most people are confusing their audience enough that they're like, okay, well, I guess, and they're not educated enough to be able to make that decision. And when they do, now we have bigger issues. Now we have the chargebacks. Now we have the people that are complaining. Now you're playing the game. You sold someone. Now you have to continue to sell someone every single month. It's time to be able to go, hey, I got it. You owe me another bill. Let's keep on going. And you're exhausted by selling them, and they're exhausted about getting sold. And I think that's the difference, right? That's what we have to be able to shift and change.
So everybody's on LinkedIn today. Now, we may not be active. We may not have gone there. Our profile might suck. We might not be putting any content out on there, but everyone has a LinkedIn profile. And so if I'm a business owner, and, from my perspective, LinkedIn is fantastic for networking, for potential lead generation or lead sources, even though we said you have to be careful about that. Great for referrals, for know, like, trust and authority, but also for recruitment. I mean, it's a massive B2B, people to people still, but people only go there,
right,
for business purposes. So I love this platform, but what should we be doing as business owners if we have not been taking advantage of like in 2024, how amazing this platform is?
Here's the first thing, man. If you're going to go through and start creating content, you're going to start doing messaging, getting your teams to be able to do it. And as the business owner, and it's interesting, I was just having this conversation with one of our fellow Genius Network members, and he was like, hey, I want you to train my team. And I looked at his profile and I go, brother, there's nothing here. You don't exist. So your team's going to go out there. Then people are going to look at what they're saying. They're going to go back to you as the owner of the company. And they're going to be like, okay, like this guy, who's this guy, right? Like, who's the guy that's running the show? And so that's the thing that I want everyone to understand as business owners. You've got to be able to show up first, right? When we come into these bigger companies, being able to go through, we come in and be able to rework the C-level executives' profiles first and foremost, before we do content, before we do messaging, because again, all that leads back to the profile. So we have to be able to make sure that profile is rocked out. And I'm not talking about a resume. Unless you're looking for a job, and even if you are, Don't put it as a resume. It needs to be able to tell your career journey, where you've been, where you're at, where you're going, right? This is that whole piece, Mark, that so many people miss out on, to be able to really draw someone into their story, because that's what people are looking for. Then it's being able to create the content that educates, inspires your audience. Then it's about the messaging. And honestly, as a business owner, if you get me personally, I would concentrate, get your profile all rocked out, create content that resonates with your ideal audience and aligns with your team, and then teach your team how to be able to leverage that and humanize the brand by educating them on building a personal brand that elevates them and empowers them, and then teach them how to actually build those conversations that build the relationships that draw all the way back in. Now you've got an amazing, I call it a social selling army, that really works, especially on LinkedIn.
And so if the place for us to start is actually on our profile, to make sure that we show up looking the part, saying the right things, building the credibility and trust we need to, providing the clarity that one needs, like, if you're checking it out, because listeners, what we have to understand is the vast majority of people who are assessing us are not giving us the benefit of the doubt. They may be cynical, skeptical, or, have red flags going off. And almost everyone purchases, buys, or assesses people through a disqualification process. We're not looking to qualify people. We're looking for reasons to disqualify them. And so if we know that that's how people tend to look at brands and personal brands and profiles and companies, what should we be focusing on to really make sure that our profiles are showing up so that way it's as impactful as it would be if we were talking right now? Me speaking to people, I do a great job. I mean, you're helping me even. Your agency's helping my profile because, hey, we do a great job in conversation, but go to my profile, it doesn't really do a great job of representing me.
And we got you on that. Don't worry, Mark. We're going to go.
Yeah. It's good. We're fixing it. By the time this is released, it'll all be fixed anyway.
But no, this is that whole piece, right? Like, as human beings, like you said, we make decisions based on some degree of love or hate. We do not make decisions being indifferent, right? We're always looking for those things that we don't align with. And I'm going to tell you right now, you need to be that person that's not indifferent. I want to attract my right audience, and I want to push away the people that aren't aligned with me. So I'm okay with the people that are going on, looking to see why they do not align with me. So I have to be able to go through, talk about these different aspects. It starts off right out the gate, because most people miss out on their profile, the title. They have CEO or business owner or whatever it might be, but that's a label for them. No one cares in the long run. I mean, they care about who they're talking to at the company, but they can see that on your LinkedIn page. They want to know how it represents to them. I always use the XYZ statement, which is I help X to achieve Y so they can have Z. I help X, your ideal audience, right? Boom, that's me. You have to be able to actually tell someone about what the services you do. But honestly, in the long run, if I walked into McDonald's and I said, hey, I want to order a Big Mac, and they're like, cool, but it's $5 or for $1, I'll show you how. You're going to have some people, they want to know how to be able to do it. And they're going, it's a lot of work. Okay, can I just pay you the $5 now? Now you paid $6 for the same thing you could have got for $5, right? So we've got to tell them why, but that's not why they're making the decision. It's the emotional outcome Z, so they can have, so they can achieve, so they can do, right? As beings, I said, we make decisions emotionally. So I help X to achieve Y so they can have, so they can achieve, so they can do. That's where it starts. Then we have to be able to actually tell our story first person in the about section, right? And then be able to go through.
So hold on. If I'm part of but if I'm part of a large organization, is this what I do, or is this what my company does, what my agency does, what my team does? Because, you might be at the point where you're 8 figures. You have your 80, 100, 140 different people working for you. You have your marketing departments. You have your teams. So I always struggle with the do I do this? I mean, technically my company does. I mean, they're much smarter than I am.
Yes, because look, you might say that, but some of our clients, we've had clients as VPs of Microsoft, and we've been able to shift their profile, because what you're trying to be able to do is humanize all the different individuals at the business, because not every single person at the company. Now, again, I'm not saying that we did the thing of Satya Nadella, right? Of Microsoft did this, right? Still an EVP at Microsoft, pretty high up in that company, talks about what they do and how they represent the company. Now, you will have CEO, what you do, if you're a keynote speaker, whatever it is, but I always start to be able to let the audience know, because then it cascades down, because they're going to go through and they want to be able to see where you sit within the business. Look, I'm going to be honest. At Standard Authority, I don't do everything at this company. I don't want everyone to think that I do everything at this company.
I hope not.
I don't want everyone to think. My wife, as you mentioned, Rachel B. Lee, she is our branding lady boss. She crushes it on that side, right? Like, I'm not that guy. So I want people to understand where I sit, what I do, and what my superpower within the company is. So when we relate or talk, we can actually go from there. So yes, and right, there's certain different levels that you need to be able to go in. But I think when you're talking about, unless you've, that 8-figure business, I think you're still fine to be able to do that and be able to have that connection with the audience. Me personally, I think we miss out on that because we're forgetting that every single person in that company has a different role, and there's different human aspects that we're all going to relate to the different audience differently. Just my opinion. People can take it or lose it.
Your opinion is the reason why we're bringing you on. Your opinion, your experiences. So now let's talk about the cascading effect, though. So we work on getting our profile fixed, but of course, it's not just about our own credibility in our own role. We need to ensure that every team member is showing up, ideally on brand, on message, fully credible.
Right.
And so sometimes we bump into, well, do we have the right as business owners to dictate whether our employees follow certain standards? Of course, it's in their best interest to do so, but is this their profile and their resume, and ideally something that they own because it's so personal to them, and we work with them to try and align it with our brand? Or do we just go straight out and say, everyone follow this rules, here's the best practices, write it in this way, show up in this way? Because again, our employees do represent our brand online.
100%. So look, we've worked with a lot of different companies, all the way from solo entrepreneurs to, as I mentioned, Microsoft, right? One of the biggest businesses out there. And there's always social media practices that should be set, basic standards of how someone should show up. It isn't Facebook. And look, dude, I remember like people were getting laid off back in the MySpace days, right? Like, remember, like one of my first clients was MySpace, right? I used to create their social media ads to monetize their traffic, and people would go in, and after a while, once companies realized, oh, wow, we've got some whack jobs that are going on here, just posting random things, about their beliefs, and that represents back on us. So 100%, as a business owner, you have to be able to have some standards in place for how people should show up on social media. Now, is that all social media? It's your call, but at least LinkedIn, because you're correct. If they're going to put on there and they're going to tie their name to your business, yes, you need to be able to have certain standards. Now, here's the whole piece, Mark. The biggest thing is, rather than setting rules and going, this is what you can and cannot do, if you empower them to be able to elevate their own personal brand that makes them more visible, they're going to be more on board. And when you empower someone to actually stand up and be able to share their voice in a way that not only elevates them, but elevates the company, dude, you get that employee becomes that much more of an asset to your business because they're bought in, right? They're not just another employee. It's not just a job. Now it's a career. And that's what we're trying to be able to do, because they see that it's a give, take, equal relationship on how everyone's showing up on that platform. And it becomes really, really amazing when you actually see that done right.
So I want to keep moving through this in the little bit of time we have left. So you fix your profile. That's number one.
Yeah.
Now, again, we want to grow network. We want more opportunities and leads coming our way. We want more referrals. We want to recruit A+ talent. What should we be focusing on to at least make it feel like something is happening?
Yeah. Look, I mean, here's the whole piece. It's not just about putting out content, right? Everyone can put out content these days, especially with AI, ChatGPT. Everyone's an expert, right? Be careful on how much content you're putting out there. Make sure it's actually relevant and that you can actually back it up, with personal history. But the first thing I want everyone to think about, how are you actually attracting your ideal audience? Content doesn't do it, right? Content isn't king these days, right? There's so much of it that we're overloaded. Quality is queen. And when we talk about quality connections, quality relationships, how are you actually going to draw those people in? Us, we use Sales Navigator, which is LinkedIn's built-in CRM system. You and I have had that conversation. And it's not just to go on, Mark, I know you get these messages, I get them too. And I swear somewhere in my profile says, hey, Josh, I see you're in the coaching industry. Ever thought about using LinkedIn to get leads? And I mean, they're just going through and grabbing some piece of Sales Navigator, downloading it, putting it in automation, and hoping they're going to strike gold every so often. But that's not how you use it. I'm going to be honest. That's not how you use it, because it's not representative of the brand or the company, especially as the owner of the business. Don't do that. Teach your salespeople. Like, we use Sales Navigator to identify our audience. And then we actually go through, because the average person on LinkedIn gets less than 1% engagement. We actually go through and then use this little thing that says, posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. And we actually go through, engage. I see Mark's post. I want to get Mark's attention, y'all. Go in, find this podcast that he posted on LinkedIn, like it, comment, and reach out. Go, Mark, dude, loved your podcast with Josh. It was amazing. I got X, Y, and Z. That will stop Mark and his team and go, oh, wow, this is different than the usual pitch I get all the time.
I think we've all experienced this, but maybe I'm unique. But I don't know if I should put this out there. If someone comments on 4 or 5 posts over the course of a few weeks, that is like already enough for me to hit my radar. It's like, it's so little. Now, I don't have a huge following. And I imagine if you have 200, 300, 400 comments on every single post you put out, maybe it takes you a few months. And maybe it's not 4 or 5, maybe it's 20 or 30.
We're talking about 1% of people that had that many comments on LinkedIn. Let's just be honest. So,
well, there you go. I mean, it's a bit like podcasting, actually. Everybody talks about podcasting. 90% of podcasts have fewer than 100 listeners. And so it's like, when I see people are like, we have a top 10% podcast, like, cool, you're better than 90%, but but you have 110 listeners. Very few people listening right now. And so, but what I'm going on to is, it just takes so little effort that I'm aware of for me to go like, oh, it's Bill, and Bill keeps commenting on stuff, and okay, and then they're thoughtful comments, and I better take the time to. And who is Bill? What's Bill doing? Oh, okay, cool. Like, it just takes such a little amount of time and effort to get on people's radars, because no one's doing it.
No. And Mark, what's really cool? We've used this in a lot of businesses to really be able to like speed up the process. Because when you're talking about bigger deals, bigger business, right? 100,000 plus deals, like those deals, they take, we all know, especially in this business world, they take a long time. When you're going through corporate, all the T's have to be crossed, all the I's have to be dotted. I mean, they ask 50 different people, are they in? Well, what we found is, don't just go after the person you think that makes the decisions. Go around all the people and do this exact same strategy to all the people around them. Because guess what? When they go in and then you, Mark, let's say you're like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about working with Josh and his team. And then someone else on your team like, oh, man, dude, I follow Josh on LinkedIn. We're connected. He has amazing information. Now you just super sped the process along, because now you had that relationship and that ability that you don't have to get to know someone else within the company. So it actually helps you actually achieve your goals faster.
That is an amazing tactic. So one thing I noticed is I've spent so long as a business owner working with business owners and C-suite executives, but there's something that happens when you hit a certain maturity in your career, or maybe income, or maybe awareness. You get a lot of opportunities, right? You get to go and be a part of really great rooms. You get invited to really cool events.
Yeah.
You get to experience and have one-on-one connections and conversations with really high-level thinkers. And I just have taken that for granted in the past. So one thing we started doing maybe 5 or 10 years ago is we started looking for opportunities and ways to extend the same types of things we get as business owners and as C-suite executives to mid-level managers or below.
Yeah.
So for some of our clients, we just started sending them to spa days. And they were like, what? And it's like, well, I mean, like, cool. Like just go do something. Go do something for the afternoon. And they work for these huge companies. And they're like, okay, they have to like secretly sign out to do these things. What I want to connect the dots with is what you're suggesting, which is everyone is going after the most competitive, highest awareness person, that manager, the VP, the SVP, the EVP, the CEO, the owner, the head of procurement, the whatever it is. Everybody's going after that one person. But if you just spread a little bit of the attention and love around everyone else in terms of commenting, questioning, including them, asking them what they think, getting their attention, giving them time that most people won't, giving them experiences most people won't, it goes so much further because they're so used to just living in the shadows, right?
And they become your advocates within the company. And
Oh, so good.
advocates are so much more powerful than just going after that one-on-one. Going after one-on-one clients is exhausting, right? But you have an advocate within that company. I mean, like, look, you and I, right? Like we're connected. We have been connected, but we built a bigger connection once I was with Evan, right? And we were going on doing his podcast, and he was like an advocate for me. You're like, dude, Josh, we need to connect more, right? It's been too many years since the fun of Clubhouse. Let's go deeper. And so
Clubhouse.
it was here's the rules of Fight Club, right? Don't talk about Fight Club. You know, man, I'm getting movie references like crazy this time. That's the whole piece, man. I mean, we talk about this all the time. I mean, I want advocates over clients every day of the week because an advocate can bring me 1,000 clients. And so like when you're talking about that, what you mentioned right there and what I talked about, that's an advocate within the company. That actually super speeds the opportunities because you're actually giving time to the people that aren't getting bombarded with messaging and opportunities all the time. And now they're working with you rather than you having to work against everyone.
So I've been talking to Josua B. Lee, who is the CEO and founder of Standout Authority. Now, final question for you, Joshua, before I let you go. What would be your number one tip or strategy to help our listeners sell more?
Biggest thing that I think most people mess out on LinkedIn, especially more than anything, it's the one platform that you can actually see every single person that looks at your profile. When was the last time you took time out to acknowledge those people for looking you up and to be able to ask them the simple question, what pushed you to look me up, right? It is amazing. It's a stone unturned and it's opportunity because if they're looking you up, they're looking for something about you, or something that you do in the industry and you showed up. So make sure that you actually start that conversation and build that relationship.
Hold on. So you just reach out to them and say, hey, couldn't help but notice you were checking me out. What's up? Or like, is that it?
I mean, honestly, Mark, we go through, if you look me up, I'm like, hey, Mark, I noticed you looked me up. You checked out my profile. I just want to reach out and say thank you. Again, we always start everything with thank you to acknowledge. Thank you is amazing to create a stopgap in someone's pattern when you appreciate them for something they take for granted every single day. And then you go, hey, love to find out what pushed you to look me up. That's it. Because all it's doing is starting a conversation. You're acknowledging them for an action they took. And then you're asking them why they did it. You're making it about them. That's it. It's crazy how simple it is, but like it works every single time.
That was the conversation I had with Josua B. Lee. Now, to wrap up, I want to share my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk. Key point number 1, you have to optimize your LinkedIn profile for credibility and engagement. In B2B sales, credibility and trust is everything. So often the people that we're hoping to work with, our prospects, our leads, even our high-value clients, they have no idea what's about to happen. Because working with you in any kind of service-based business, you know exactly what's going to happen. The impact, you know the steps, you know how it's going to work. You've been through it before. But if you haven't experienced it, you have no idea what's coming ahead. So this creates incredible amounts of uncertainty. And so when people meet you, when people check you out, when you reach out via LinkedIn, when they come and check out your profile, every aspect of your profile should be focused on building up credibility and creating paths to be able to engage with them. Number 2, if you want to win on LinkedIn, yes, you can go straight for the sale, straight for the pitch, straight for the cold outreach, straight for the ad. But that's not going to help you build long-term success. That's going to help you get maybe short-term sales. Certainly, it's going to help piss a bunch of people off. And so point number 2 is it's about building relationships over focusing on transactions. So when you're on LinkedIn, I want you to imagine you're walking into a live networking event. I want you to imagine that you're at a barbecue or at a friend's house or at a party or at a conference. I want you to imagine that each person who is online is face-to-face with you in the room. These are not numbers of connections. You have 1,200 connections? Awesome. They're actually 1,200 people that you could have one-on-one talks with. When someone's reaching out to you in your direct mail or you're DMing them, or you're over on Sales Navigator and you're building out your lists, as you're commenting on, liking on things, these are not just transactions hoping that the person will become a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead. Sure, we build up our relationships and our funnels so that way one day people will become those things. But this is much more about building relationships and networking into different groups than simply treating it as some kind of platform where you just post stuff and never engage, or you only engage but never actually share any information or have conversations, or that you do everything in commenting, trying to push people to a funnel without ever jumping into DMs. Treat this like real life, and it will take you so much further, so much faster. And point number 3, you can leverage LinkedIn and specifically Sales Navigator for strategic networking. And you can do this through really thoughtful engagement. So if you are not familiar with Sales Navigator, or if you are, you may know that there are lists you can build based on different personas, different targets, and different use cases. You build out your list, and then you can go in and you can track who is doing what in terms of engagement and when the last time that you've reached out to them are. And as you're watching this content, use the opportunity to keep track of who is doing what's happening in the company. Go out there and comment, because often the really big names might have, 100 or 200 or 300 or 500 comments on there. But most of us are posting things that maybe get, 10 or 20 or 30 comments. And if that's still an incredible amount of engagement. And so if you are interested in getting closer to Bob, then why not make sure that every time Bob posts something, you like it? Why not every once in a while leave a comment? Why not start to jump into a bit of a conversation with Bob? Why not show Bob that you're paying attention to what they say, you're reading what they say, and you're having a thoughtful engagement and asking questions, and not just spamming them, but actually showing Bob that you're a bit of a fan? Don't you think? This is what kills me. Of course, you are going to rise up. You're going to sift up. The cream will rise to the top, because now suddenly you are that person, that thumbnail, that name, that person who's asking questions, that's engaging. And they're going to go, who the heck is this? And they're going to want to know more about you. And that is how relationships are started. So I went on a bit of a rant there because I'm so passionate about this. But those were my 3 biggest takeaways from this talk. I'm curious, what were yours? Did anything challenge your perspective? Let's deep dive into this over on LinkedIn, where I share more insights and I tend to spark conversations with content. I'm Mark Drager. You can find my contact details in the episode show notes below. Now, while you're over on LinkedIn, of course, we've been talking about LinkedIn, so head over there. Make sure to follow Josua B Lee for more actionable and effective tips. You can also check out his website, standoutauthority.com. You can check out his book, Balance is Bullshit: How to Successfully Integrate Work and Life. And of course, one last thing, if you've made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. And here's why. Because obviously, you're an ambitious B2B leader. Obviously, you're hungry to build a book of business or to boost sales. And so this is the place where every single week we will share tips and strategies just like what Josua shared with us today to be able to grow your book of business and boost sales. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode. I am Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next one.